Lubbock to address the TFRW. I know in the past you've talked about other candidates finding a difficult path here in Texas. Do you feel, that was a few months ago, and I think you said that, now we're here in November, do you feel that some candidates are starting to feel that the field here in Texas is not as open as they maybe once thought it was?
Well, I know the support that we have had from Republican women in Texas has been extraordinary. My campaign for Senate, the Republican women gathered here were the heart and soul of that campaign. And we had unbelievable grassroots support from Republican women all over the state who knocked on doors, who sent emails, who got online, who made phone calls. And, you know, I am so grateful for all of the many dear friends who are here, of women who just have a passion for freedom, have a passion for our great state, a passion for our nation. And I think we're in a very strong position in my home state of Texas. I'm gratified by that, but we're taking nothing for granted. And so we are campaigning hard to earn the vote of every Texan. I hope and intend to win the Texas primary, but we're going to work every day to earn the support of grassroots activists, of men and women and leaders throughout the state.
You recently criticized the media for questions they asked during the presidential debate. What issues would you like to discuss?
You know, I think debates ought to focus on substance and on comparing the records and the policy ideas and visions of the different candidates. And you know, you can see a difference when you have moderators that are frankly coming from a very different political perspective. Right now, Democratic primary debates are moderated almost exclusively by liberal Democratic reporters. And Republican primary debates are moderated almost exclusively by liberal Democratic reporters. It doesn't make any sense. It seems to me a starting point should be that anyone who is moderating a Republican Party primary ought to be somebody who is voting in a Republican Party primary. And there's a reason for this. Listen, conservative primary voters all across this country are trying to make a decision. Who do they want to support in the primary? And so they're balancing the different candidates. They're trying to ascertain, all right, who's the strongest conservative? Who has a proven record? Who's walked the walk? What are the differences? Are there differences on issues? Are there differences on immigration and amnesty? Are there differences on taxes? Are there differences on marriage and life and religious liberty? Those are all questions that primary voters are wondering. But from the perspective of reporters that are coming from the left, those are not questions that are dwelling on them. You know, I've suggested, can you imagine a Republican primary debate that was moderated by Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin? Now listen, those would not be softball questions. Those guys are not pussycats. But they are conservatives who would be interested in getting to the bottom of who's really a conservative, what have they done, what is their record. I think that would be far more beneficial for the voters.
While we're kind of on the topic of debates, what do you think about, since there's so many candidates, the media kind of playing a role in which candidates get more coverage with the main debates and then the secondary debates?
Well, look, the media has always had a role in that, and with regard to the debates, I think it is important that we have a full and robust debate. And what we're seeing happening is there is a sorting out that's happening. It's happening right in front of us. It's been going on for several months. But it is clear that voters are starting to examine the candidates and starting to make decisions. And one of the things that I am most encouraged about is that conservatives are really uniting behind our campaign. We're seeing conservatives consolidate behind our campaign. I think it is likely that this race, as many other races have in the past, will end up at the end of the day being a battle between a strong conservative and a moderate establishment candidate. And I think if it gets to a head-to-head battle like that, I believe the conservative will win, particularly this time. You know, in past cycles, conservatives have never had any money. We've been divided, we've bickered like cats and dogs. This cycle, conservatives are uniting. The fundraising our campaign is seeing, we're shattering records on fundraising. We finished this last quarter with more cash on hand than any candidate in the race. That's astonishing. It's a testament to over 360,000 contributions from all over the country from grassroots activists. Our average contribution was $73. We have donors in 58% of the zip codes in America. People going to tedcruz.org and supporting the campaign. And so the debates are one manifestation of the winnowing out that is playing out. You're seeing the winnowing out on the grassroots, who can earn the grassroots support and the trust of the activists. You're seeing the winnowing out on the fundraising. and you're seeing the winnowing out in terms of the support, both nationally, but I think far less important than nationally is support in the early primary states, in Iowa, in New Hampshire, in South Carolina, and Nevada, in the Super Tuesday states, all throughout the so-called SEC primary. And of course, the crown jewel of Super Tuesday is the great state of Texas. And I am incredibly encouraged at the depth of support we're seeing across the primary states. We are all in Iowa. We are all in New Hampshire. We are all in South Carolina. We're all in Nevada. And we have a very strong team on the ground in all 4 states. In fact, we're the only Republican candidate to have announced county chairs in all 171 counties in each of the first 4 states. But we've also got an incredible grassroots team all across the Super Tuesday states, the SEC primary states, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas. That combination, I think, puts us in very, very good stead. And I think this conversation will continue. I hope that we will continue to see conservatives uniting, because if conservatives come together, it's game over. We win. We win the primary. And if conservatives turn out and vote, that's how we win the general as well.
Last question.
Senator, with Keystone Pipeline,
Yeah.
and you obviously have the next debate coming up, which will focus on jobs. That's a job killer that
Yes.
President Obama
Yes.
announced yesterday. How would President Cruz handle that going forward?
I intend to reverse the decision on Keystone Pipeline and approve the pipeline. And, this decision this week by President Obama is yet another cynical political decision, putting partisan interest ahead of the interest of working men and women. It's interesting. The Democrats in the past couple of years have made a curious decision. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Harry Reid, they've chosen between 2 traditional favored children of the Democratic Party. They've chosen to go with the money from California environmentalist billionaires instead of the jobs of union members. And I guess the Democrats made the cynical decision that they needed the money now, and that the union bosses would deliver the votes even if the union members lost their jobs. Well, I'll tell you right now, I stand unequivocally with working men and women, with union members, with people that want to work and provide for their families. People who have been under assault from this administration for 7 years now. One of the first things I did when I was newly elected to the Senate is I joined a bipartisan group of senators, 10 senators, 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, writing a joint letter to President Obama urging him to approve the Keystone Pipeline. And we said, listen, Mr. President, there are issues that we can disagree with on a partisan level. We can have arguments about what the right marginal tax rate is. But approving Keystone is as close to a no-brainer as any decision you will find in politics. Approving the Keystone Pipeline, number 1, makes sense from a national security perspective. It doesn't make any sense for us to remain dependent on Middle Eastern oil from many countries who hate us. That makes no sense at all, rather than having North American energy independence, which we are on the cusp of, and which could be achieved quite rapidly if the federal government didn't stand in the way. But secondly, it makes sense from a perspective of jobs in the economy. Approving Keystone, literally with a stroke of a pen, Barack Obama could allow the creation of tens of thousands of high-paying jobs here in America, good jobs that support the community. Instead, he decided, your job doesn't matter to me. But number 3, it makes sense from a perspective of government revenue. We've got an $18 trillion debt. Building Keystone, all of those jobs will pay taxes into the federal treasury, taxes that can pay down our debt, taxes that can help avoid bankrupting our kids and grandkids. But number 4, from the perspective of the environment, Keystone is a no-brainer. If you are a Birkenstock-wearing, bearded, tattooed, tree-hugging, Greenpeace activist, you should love the Keystone Pipeline. Why is that? 2 very simple reasons. Number 1, if we don't bring the oil in on a pipeline, then it will continue to come in on overseas tankers. And as long as there are tankers on the ocean filled with oil, there will be oil spills that do much more massive environmental damage than any pipeline would ever do. From an environmental perspective, bringing oil in a pipeline is a far safer way to do it. But number 2, it's not like the Canadians are just going to say, okay, we'll leave the tar sands where they are. If they don't build the pipeline north-south, they're going to build it east-west. And instead of refining the oil here in America and producing jobs here, they'll refine it in China, and the refineries in China are much, much dirtier than the American refineries. So they'll end up doing more damage to the environment rather than refining it here in America in much cleaner refineries in ways that produce jobs and opportunity right here at home. And you know, it's striking, President Obama's former energy secretary admitted publicly, said the decision on Keystone has nothing to do with science. It's all about politics. That is a sad and cynical statement, but I can say it is why the Democrats have gotten so out of touch with America, because they're no longer listening to working men and women. If I'm elected president, we'll approve the Keystone Pipeline. We will approve pipelines across the country. We will approve new refineries. We will pull back the EPA that is strangling small businesses, that is strangling the oil and gas industry, and we will launch an American energy renaissance. God has blessed America with incredible natural resources, and I'm a big believer in all of the above. We should pursue them all. Oil and gas and coal and wind and solar and biofuels and ethanol and nuclear and everything else man's creativity can generate to produce energy. And if we do that, that will produce millions of high-paying jobs. Millions of high-paying jobs. You know, Texas sees that every day. The booming economy here in Texas. We need to bring those same proven principles to the United States of America. And I would note, not only does that enable high-paying jobs in the energy sector, but abundant low-cost energy also lets us bring manufacturing jobs back to America. Bring back to America heavy manufacturing, the steel industry, the kind of blue-collar jobs that form the backbone of the American middle class, the kind of blue-collar jobs that under Barack Obama have gotten hammered over and over and over again. I believe the way Republicans win in 2016 is we run a populist campaign fighting for hardworking men and women who want to believe again in the promise of America. And we run it against the bipartisan corruption of Washington, embodied by Hillary Clinton.
Thanks, guys.